everyone. Welcome to the podcast. Today I get to have my friend on and our client, Tyler Dam. And so we're going to hear Tyler's story and just have a conversation. But this whole thing kind of came out of Tyler and I having a lunch like this. We had a Zoom lunch because Tyler's, he lives a 5-hour plane ride away from me. So it's kind of a little easier to connect over Zoom than to have lunch with the flights. And I was like, man, we should have just recorded this. This is great. Like, this would have been a great podcast. And it's created the thought of like, our clients have really amazing stories, and they've had a really amazing testimony having worked with us and what Jesus has done. So we just kind of get to catalyze things, but Jesus does all the work, and it's been really fun to see what's happened in Tyler's life, and so I'm excited for you guys to hear this today. So Tyler, welcome. So tell us a bit about yourself. Tyler, you live in Chatham, Ontario. What do you do for a living?
So I got a hardware store. It's called Dam Home Hardware. It's my last name. Obviously, it's great.
Yeah.
We've had to clarify that with a few customers. One lady in particular actually was like, I find it really offensive that you have Dam Home Hardware. And I was like, well, it's actually my last name, ma'am. And she goes, I'm still offended.
She said she's still offended?
Yeah. So anyway, it's Dam Home Hardware. It's
There's no N. It's just DAM.
It's just DAM. No, but it's highly offensive. No, it's been a fun last name for sure. Yeah. But if you're from the U.S., it's like an Ace Hardware store. But in Canada, everyone knows what a home hardware is. And then I've got another hunting business and fishing business inside the home hardware called Cabin Creek Supply. And then we have a new trailer company called Riggs. And then I also work for another company called Premier Portable Buildings, which is out of the U.S., but has I think 30 or 40 dealerships. So I oversee Ontario for them. And then we're also a portable buildings dealership as well. So,
and that's kind of how that gig got connected, right?
Yeah, so we the home hardware is kind of like the heart, I always call it, of it all, and then it's opened a lot of other doors to other things. But background before business is ministry, and I went to school at Calvin College in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I was going to be a chiropractor, and the Lord he didn't shut it down, but he showed it.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, man. It was either going to be like a naturopath or a physio or something natural, but the Lord, he was like, "No, that's not for you." It's like, okay.
Sweet. I love that.
Yeah.
That's what people have said about me too. I can see you being a chiropractor. I'm like,
I know.
I don't know if that's a compliment.
It's fun. I was taking biology in college, and my parents were like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "I don't. It's really hard, but yeah." And then, are you sure you want to do business? No, it's not for me. I don't do business.
Well, and then how'd you get into ministry though? Because if you're going down that road, and then all of a sudden you're a pastor for a few years, how did that happen?
That's a long story, but it's a cool one. So I'm definitely living in sin, living in the ways of the world. They never give up the belief that Jesus is Lord over my life, but I'm having a hard time reconciling, the desires and kind of the lane I'm running in. And then on my way, I took a 5th year at Calvin College, and to kind of finish some courses up because I switched my major a few times. And then, I get this sense I'm supposed to go into ministry. So I end up at this ministry called Ride Nature. And, I'm like walking out of, the sin and kind of shedding some bad habits, some addictions, some things that I've just been running for a while. And the Lord calls me out to Ride Nature, which is in Naples, Florida. And it's an action sports ministry which uses wakeboarding, surfing, skateboarding as a medium to share the gospel kind of all over the world. And so because I had this visa, it's called an OPT, where you get to use what you've learned and then do an actual placement in somewhere in the U.S. You get to live there for 1 extra year, which is sweet. So I was kind of able to stretch kinesiology being, a major, and then go do missions because it was action sports. It was kind of cool. But I ended up going to all over the world, but it was kind of crazy. I ended up in North Korea for a season or a couple weeks, and during that time, the church that my parents were a part of was praying, and I think some of them were fasting because obviously I was just off the grid, had to leave our phones in China, and because we were going to actually teach North Koreans how to surf and skate, and just a very miraculous journey, just wild, having strangers walk up to you and be like, just giving us thousands of dollars before we were supposed to go, being like, we're supposed to give this to you. I don't really know why. It was just, that's a whole story. But all that to say, I ended up doing a presentation on North Korea when I got back, because the church was like, we've been praying for you. And I did get out alive. And like
Worked out. That seems good. Yeah, I can see that.
I know. Crazy. So we end up showing the presentation, and then at that time they had a youth pastor that I think had stepped back, and they were like, can you just lead us like in the interim?
Wow.
And would you mind just overseeing? And that kind of led from one thing to another. So I ended up staying in ministry for a few years, and it was a really fun ride. It was a great time.
Yeah, you enjoyed it. And where was that? Was that your church that you grew up in, or where?
That was the church I met my wife at. Actually, that was the church she grew up in, but my parents have been attending there for a few years. So when I left for university and kind of moved to the States, they were at a different church, and then when I came back, they were at Gregory Drive Alliance Church. So
okay, nice.
The Alliance Church. Fantastic church. It was never really a home church for me, because I think I came back and it was more of a workplace than anything, like a family, but definitely always was like leading and shepherding. But yeah,
man, I'm an Alliance baby too. That's what I grew up in.
You're an Alliance guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, this is fun. This is stuff I've never
know. It takes us doing a podcast together to flush this stuff out. We can't just
That's right. Like actually hear the story. Yeah, I was born Catholic. So Catholic. My middle name's Joseph, and Angela's middle name's Marie. Like we're that Catholic.
Nice.
Born and raised. And then my dad has a whole story where he's like, feel like God's calling us to the Alliance Church, and my mom did not want to go because she's Catholic. That was her culture. And so my dad made the joke that her heel marks were still in the parking lot from when they first went to the and she ended up loving it, which is good. They went
is this out in Calgary, like, or Alberta area?
No, this is Edmonton in Sherwood Park. So Sherwood Park Alliance Church, big green building for anyone who's been there. And yeah, that was the church I went to and the school I went to, because they had a school attached to the church. So I like lived in the bubble. Sports kind of got me.
A.B. Simpson is then.
Oh yeah. Well, not only so I know who A.B. Simpson is, but my brother also went to school in Bethel down the road, in Reading, and A.B. Simpson College is like 5 minutes from Bethel, Reading. So like
A.B.'s from Chatham.
He's from Chatham? That's crazy. I didn't know that.
He went out this property with a couple of the pastors, like where he grew up. So I'm paging through reading his autobiographies. We have to take some of his books when you like get accredited. We'll have a license in the Alliance, and I'm like, Chatham on, no. So we went like to his property. Yeah, the house is gone, but he's a Chatham boy, which was actually really interesting, because like you read something and it just seems so far away, so distant, like this guy, and he just like undergirds the Pentecostal movement, and there's just all this history behind Azusa Street Revival, and you're like, wow, this guy just did some really cool stuff. And then you find out that he's like from the same city you're in, and everything just gets really, you kind of have to sit there, because it shouldn't be like that, but it is.
And Chatham's not like a big town. Now it's like 100, what is it, 100,000?
No, Chatham, Kent's like 110,000, but Chatham itself would be in the 40-ish thousand.
Wow. Okay, so like a town of 40,000 people, and he's one of the main kind of revivalists and like founders. He never meant to actually found a denomination, right? The Alliance Church
wasn't supposed to
be an alliance between churches. Yeah,
and even like growing up in that, I'm so thankful to the Lord that I got trained up and was actually able to study some theology under the Alliance, because I just have always appreciated like the Word and Spirit. You know, growing up more conservative, like Calvinist, and then doing a year of missions all over the world and running with guys who are from YWAM, from Surfing the Nations, and then encountering the supernatural and seeing things that you can't unsee.
Yeah,
that's how. Well, you can't. Okay, it's in the Bible. This isn't fake. This isn't real. There's a supernatural lens, and so it's interesting because it's been a part of the calling that I've felt on my life, is that I'll sit in a room full of people with a broad spectrum of backgrounds, and because like A.B. Simpson, like he's all Word and Spirit, and how do we mend those together? And I'm just like, man. And honestly, I'm not a big I'm not a big brand guy in the sense that like I'm this kind of guy, or I'm this kind, like I'm kind of anti that at nature, but I could pretty easily say like I align really strongly with alliance theology or a Simpsons theology, his viewpoint, because it just marries a lot of tensions. But anyway, it's cool. I didn't know that about you, man. Maybe that's why we connect.
Why we click so well, man.
Now I know.
Well,
It's not Jesus, it's ABC.
let's make AB Simpson,
That's
Jesus
messed
and
up.
AB Simpson. No, yeah, I love what everything you're saying. It's exactly the experience that I had, except um, I was introduced first to grace, like the revelation of grace through Joseph Prince. So I grew up in the Alliance denomination, and our church was a lot more like a Baptist church rather than an Alliance church. Like, it was definitely Alliance theology, but the pastor came from the Baptist church, so more conservative and less gifts focused, because you get a wide expression in the Alliance Church across Canada. And again, the Alliance Church in the States is the CM, or is it CMA? Yeah, Calgary, or I
Yeah,
think it's the Missionary Alliance.
CNMA. Because yeah, there's one in Detroit, and then it like kind of varies a bit though. Like I don't know
Yeah,
always know. You don't know actually what you're gonna get when you go into an Alliance church these days because
100%.
like we actually had a pastor who was really trying to re-implement like the fourfold gospel after there being a pastor and who was not really an Alliance guy by nature. He's more of a Salvation Army background. So it
Wow.
was funny to talk to like I remember talking to an older woman in the back, and she's like, I remember the days, like in the back of the church when we would be, praying for miracles over people.
Yeah.
Like, and
Hmm.
yet you can sometimes, I think, I wouldn't, cessationist would be too strong of a word, but you can get people that are more word focused. And so,
Yeah.
did you ever hear why they think that a lot of the acts of the Spirit or like the miraculous have kind of died away?
In the Alliance Church, or where?
Yeah.
No.
Like when there was that whole movement of the tongues being like
Right.
a requirement for salvation, the hypothesis is that the Alliance actually implemented kind of a phrase that was seek not, forbid not. So
Oh,
it's
really?
okay if there's this kind of stuff happening, there's okay, but like we're not going to make this the centrifuge of our focus anymore. And
Yeah.
so sometimes I think that older generation thinks because we stopped seeking like this alignment with what's in the Word of God, we've somewhat stopped seeing it, which is there's mystery in that. But like again,
Huh.
so there's a thought that that's maybe why, but again, I remember that coming up in some of the classes we were in and finding that kind of interesting. But
That is really interesting. Huh. Thanks for sharing that. For me with the gifts, it's funny now because my focus with the gift, like, we practice the gifts of the Spirit all the time, but I actually teach them to my kids. I think it's Foundations 102. Foundations 101 is hearing God's voice. Foundations 102, practicing the gifts of the Spirit. And because it's just a manifestation of the evidence of the Spirit in your life. And it's so funny because what you talked about before, I talk about all the time. I love demystifying the mystical for Baptists and Alliance people and all the conservative people. Like, I love walking them through the progression because I've walked through the progression. So I can
sure,
I
yeah.
can anchor things in Scripture and be like, hey, this is where it is, and this is how we walk it out.
And
And
you
it doesn't
wrestle
have to
through
be
it.
weird.
You would have
Yeah.
had to wrestle through those things and be like, I don't know, and there's a tension in this, and
Yep. No, it was fun. I remember we had our intercession boot camp, and there was a woman on there who said exactly what you said about the gift of tongues. She was like, it's evidence of the Spirit, and I just have never been able to pray in tongues. And I'm like, well, you can just start. Like, you have the Holy Spirit, and you can just start praying in tongues. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, you don't have to have this moment where you're overcome and you're unknowingly speaking in tongues. It's like, I just chose to engage it because I have the Spirit of God in me. And that's what I still choose to
it
do.
took me so long to get through that.
I know, but it's
Like
so funny because
so long. Yeah, oh man. I speak in tongues. It took me a long time to even share that I did it because it was so deeply personal. But that journey, I remember meeting up and so with someone and trying to. I think some of the background of me, I need to make this thing happen, or it's supposed to just like magically come upon me, was just such a, yeah. And now
yeah,
it's just a
and,
place of
and
deep strength. It's just deeply personal now, and it's like
yeah,
it's a
well,
prayer
it's
language.
your
It's this thing that I
with God.
tap
Yeah.
into, and I'm not sure what to say, like, or how to pray over this
Well,
industry.
there's some neat science behind it because it actually bypasses the language center in your brain. They've done
Right.
brain scans on people when they pray in tongues, so it's literally just your spirit connecting to God. But what I said to this woman, I was like, my son at the time, I think he was like 9 months old. He's 18 months old now. Maybe he's about a year. And so he was trying to talk, right? And I'm like, okay, so even if you're getting it wrong, do you think your Father in heaven's going to be mad at you for trying to speak to him? Or do you think that, do I go up to my son Xander and be like, Xander, come on, get your words out, like get it right? Or am I just elated and delighted that he's
Oh, it's
trying to
cute.
talk to me?
It's so cute. Oh, they're
Right.
cooing. We call that cooing, don't we?
Yeah.
They're just sitting there like you're like,
Well,
oh my
that's like
gosh, like
newborn. Yeah.
he thinks he's talking. He
Yeah.
thinks he's saying something. And then you just kind of all gather around. Maybe that's
Yeah.
what the angelic do when you're trying to, I'm just, who knows?
That's
Like
100%
he's
what
trying to
happens.
say something. Oh my word.
Or your spirit's finally talking and they're like,
Or
yeah.
it's just talking. Yeah, you're just, something in the supernatural is just, yeah, going wild. That's cool, man.
Absolutely. Well,
Really cool.
it was fun. But let's get back to you. That's why we're here. I like theology, but so you and I, so you're walking this journey out. You were in ministry, and then you went into business. How did that happen?
So I started reading a book called Visioneering by Andy Stanley. It's this like comparison of, it's not a comparison. It's the story of Nehemiah in parallels of like this idea that something's on Nehemiah's heart for a long time before it actually comes to fruition. And it's neat because God actually uses someone who's not kingdom minded to fuel his own mission. And I was pretty restless in ministry, I would say. And I think the Lord had impressed on me, he's like, this isn't for you long term. And yet I was like, okay, there's aspects of my personality and what you've gifted me, and that's in my lane in this. And yet there's like this heart for more. And yet there's this weight where you're digging deep, you're trying to be grateful, you're being stoked on what you're doing in that moment, but some of the high of that has worn off. And I'm a strong starter, so I know, I get a lot of like explosive energy at the beginning, and then I have to like buckle down and be disciplined to maintain things. So I was going through some of that too, but I just had this sense. I read a passage in that book, and it was like this idea that Nehemiah had a desire for something long before he could even really do anything about it. And so at that time, I felt like I was supposed to be obedient to this idea that I was going to be moving into the business world in some way, shape, or form. I just didn't know how. And so I actually bought a couple business books, like on Amazon, or no, on my Kindle, and I've never read them, but I remember just being like, I'm just going to do it. And I'm
Yes.
like 5 things for business, and never looked at them. I don't really like reading that kind of stuff on my Kindle. I know that now because I never read them. And was just waiting and kind of like poking around. And my grandpa, who's a very successful entrepreneur, was like, have you ever considered getting a home hardware? And I'm like, no, that's not really what I'm after. Because the ones that we had are the ones that I've been into were like a little dusty and a little outdated and not aesthetically, I guess, what I saw myself being engaged in, because the aesthetics are important to me. And I was like, no. And he came back around again. I was like, have you considered it, man? You can just, work 20 hours a week and you can keep doing your preaching thing. You need to keep doing ministry. Like, you need to keep preaching, but why don't you basically, like, you don't need to pull your paycheck from the church. Why don't we just, and I was like, no, I'm not that interested. I just don't think that's for me. And then a third time he was like, you should just sit down with home. Why don't we just sit down with them? He's a really persuasive guy, and he's a good guy, and he I had a lot of trust in him. And so I was like, okay, I'll sit down with him and we'll just look. We'll look at the number. That's like famous last words, like when I look at a puppy. It's like,
Well, that's you. That's famous last words for you. Because how many businesses you got running now?
yeah, it's a bunch. Now it's really evolved. So, and then I actually saw a home hardware that was out west that had like this beautiful timber frame in BC. They do things pretty cool out in the west. And I remember kind of saying to the guy, like, can I do it like that? And he was like, yeah, you could do it like that. I was like, okay. And then I saw a building, and fast forward a year and a half later, the Lord just opens door after door after door, like getting financing that I shouldn't be able to get. Home hardware takes a flyer on me, which is because I have some really good men in my corner, but I also the only argument I can really make that I'll be good at this is, okay, I have good men in my corner, my dad and my grandpa, and I know people, and I love people. So I know how to work with teams. I know how to cultivate a culture of honor, because I've been doing ministry, but I know nothing about retail. I'm not super handy, and I had never done a business before. And you just fast forward a year, and I remember like sitting at the desk in my office, like wearing red. I don't even like the color red, like at all. And I'm like wearing bright red. And I just remember being like, Lord, you better know what you're doing, because I don't even know anything about any of this stuff. And I just had unknowingly general contracted all the building of the building. Like, I remember at one point during the building, like, I remember calling the general contractor and being like, why is so much stuff falling between the cracks all the time? Because I'm like, we're building this home hardware, like, in a building. We bought a building. And he's like, you're like the GC, right? And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, why are there no health and safety posters on the wall? Like, where is everything? And he's like, you're the general contractor, dude. I remember being like, oh, like, I put spray foam. I had them like spray insulation like in the ceiling before the electrical guys went in. So they had to like go up in hazmat suits. Like, I'm talking, I had no idea what I'm doing. And it turns out on like a side conversation, I think my grandpa had even unknowingly been like, no, Tyler will take care of that. And he was like, oh, okay, sounds good. And so I just get like thrown in. It just works out okay. But I think I was like the youngest home hardware owner in the country, just sitting there with no experience and going, only you could do this, Lord, but you gotta just help me.
Yep.
And like, he's just leading. And my buddy says that, he goes, where he leads, he feeds, where he guides, he provides, where there's vision, there's provision, right? And I'm just getting going, and then like COVID happens. And so any mentor that I can call, I'm calling guys to help me, because I like asking for help. I'm not afraid to ask for help. If I see men who know a lot more, and I'll call them and be like, can I learn from you? And usually the answer is yes, because no one cares about retail as much as the guy who does it.
Yep.
Like, and all the playbooks are out the window. So it's just, and then from then on, like, God's just been good. Like,
yeah. Well, there was a lot of renovations during COVID too, right? So you would have been in a little bit more.
Like, our sales doubled, overnight, and our financial structures weren't set up for it. Nothing was set up for it. It was wild. It was good though. God was really good to us. And I think the craziest thing about this is like our first year, like, we had been set to take a small loss, because on a 5-year plan on a large upfront cost like a retail store, like, that's pretty normal. And yet we took like a massive loss, and because there was just cost overruns and unforeseens. And I remember it's another layer to a story of going where God calls you. Is like, I remember looking at this number on the page, and I had just given like my like everything to this process, and looking at the number and being like, again, you got to know what you're doing, because like, and yet I also remember getting a text message, during COVID, where we made more money. I remember getting a text message like from someone needing like air purifiers on like an emergency tender, because and making more money than we had made in the last several years through a single text message. And so you just,
crazy, eh?
it's just him. It's unbelievable. So I remember the Lord saying, like, your ministry is going to be the marketplace, and there's things in this that you don't understand yet, and I want you to have that contact point. And I remember saying that, like, I love hanging out with non-Christians. Like, I really enjoyed my time shepherding and equipping and empowering within the four walls of a church institution, but my heart always longed to be outside of it. And so he was like, well, I'll grant that to you.
That's awesome.
And more than you're asking for. So, yeah.
Yeah. And in that process, so you got married, you and Michelle have been married for how long now?
We had been married for about 2 years, and we had just had our first daughter, Willa.
Okay. Yeah. And so that was 2020.
It's 2018, September, we like officially opened.
Wow. Okay. So you're in 2018, then COVID hits, 2019, early 2020. So moving from ministry, I like Grandpa, oh yeah, you can still do your preaching thing 20 hours a week. That's never the case with the business.
His accountant was in the room, and he's a good buddy of him, and my grandpa was like the pusher, the catalyst, would just see things. And I remember his name is Lance, and he looks at my grandpa, he looks at me and goes, it's going to be 60.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, it will be 60. And I'm like, and my grandpa goes, no. If you know my grandpa, he'd be like, no. And my Aunt Lance is like, it will be 60.
He was right.
He was super right. It's still 60. No, sometimes it is. But.
Sometimes it is. Yeah. Well,
That's
it's because
okay.
you took on a second job, and that's a whole cool story as
Sure.
well. But
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
other
and I
people,
like working. Like I enjoy it. I love my family. I love leisure. I like it all. But
yeah,
yeah, it's fun.
that's good. So okay, so you're walking along this journey, and then what's going on in your heart in the process? Because you have like this desire to do ministry. You're married. You're building this business, and what are the undercurrents going on in your heart?
A lot of guilt at the time. A lot of
Yeah.
growth. A lot of tension. Tremendous excitement, and yet I went in. I was a big Hugh Halter fan, so I had like read Tangible Kingdom, which is a tremendous book, and then I read a book called Bible. So I think I had this like ideal dream of I was going to be doing 20 hours a week, 20 hours a week, and I was trying to like I remember buying the 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss and being like I'm going to do this, and I'm just so gung ho at the beginning. I'm just reading all these books and I'm just like you're just naive, but like in the best way possible though. Like I look back sometimes and I go, if you had told me how hard it was going to be to like get your first business under your belt, I wouldn't call it a big business, but your first business under your belt, like I wouldn't have done it just because of how hard it was and just the fear, but then the excitement. But you're also naive. Like I remember even looking at that number, that loss, and being kind of like, all right, well, it's gonna work out, and because my grandpa's sitting there, he's like, you're gonna be fine, right? And being kind of like, this is a lot of money. So it's just like this roller coaster because the newness of marriage, the newness of being a dad. We're leading like a small house church at this time with a bunch of young adults too.
Seriously?
Oh yeah, because I'm part of this thing called New Ventures in the Alliance, which is like these untraditional. It's like a program, and I'm walking alongside them in this new venture, and so I have this ideals, and I just remember I hit a tipping point where the Lord released me from ministry. And we closed the house church down, but we closed it down in the sense that like it didn't go sour before it went bad, but it was like we need to close this before it goes sour. We need to end the season.
Yeah.
And one of my best friends, mentor, the guy who married my wife and I, Michelle, his name's Mark Soto. I remember he called me and he's like, "You're just pouring out in every area of your life. You're a new dad, you're a new husband, you're a new house owner, you're a new business owner. Like you're definitely like." Either burned out or like redlining right now. You need to rest. And do you want to come to our Forward City Church, our church, and be in a life group? I'll plug you in. And there's only one thing I'm gonna promise you basically is that you don't have to lead.
Wow. Well, that's
I'm gonna
shifted a
ask
little
anything
now.
of you.
But
What's that?
so that's shifted a little now. But
Yeah, it's shifted.
at
It's
the
shifted.
time,
He didn't ask me to lead, so which is
no,
cool.
I
He
know.
had someone else. He let it. Like, he's been protective of me in that sense, but he
That's
let
good.
someone else guide that, which is really cool.
That is cool.
But anyway, but I remember him releasing me from ministry and saying, "You need to go full force business for a season and learn this as a craft." And so
And
that's
so
what
that
happened.
was what your mentor said.
No, I sensed that from the Lord, just a release
Yeah.
in my spirit where I was just praying. I'm
Yeah.
like, man, I'm holding all these things. I have this ideal of like you doing Bible where I'm putting all this time into ministry, and the Lord was just working that out. And I remember Him just releasing, or I had this piece about He's like, just
Yeah.
dive in, just go full force. And I remember learning, the business from doing the accounting and receivables to running the marketing to doing the buying to just really feeling this peace and immersing myself in that. And so, I mean, it's a long answer to a small question, but it's like there was a lot going on because it's the first time that I've reflected on it in a while because it was just a
Yeah.
blur. And then COVID became even more of a blur. Whereas I think people just try to forget about that season of life, and it's for a lot of people either they can't remember much of it or they don't want to. So,
Yep.
but it was really exciting, but very stressful too.
What? And so you're walking along this process for a few years. What was the internal wrestle that maybe others couldn't see, but you were carrying?
Relative to what?
Just the stresses of life. So I understand that you're at this point of burnout potentially with running a house church and running your business and being a new dad, being a new husband. What was the internal world? Because there's lots going on. I know when we met, there was some stuff that you were wrestling through. That you don't have to get into the depth if you don't want to. Just whatever you feel best to share. But what I've noticed with business owners, with many leaders, is that it is super alienating to be in that position. You're very lonely generally because you're in that struggle alone, or if you have people with you, you're leading those people. So it's hard to be like, hey, this is really hard because you have to actually reveal that, and then you feel vulnerable, and that vulnerability in the world sense can be leveraged against you. So usually we go more internal and we try and carry stuff on our own. And so yeah, just would you be willing to share a little bit about what that was like for you?
Yeah, I think that the most predominant feeling I'm feeling as you're saying that I remember was just feeling super trapped.
Mm.
And I still remember, well, when you're in university and there's always these natural breaks that you get to look forward, you push really hard for exam week, and then also you get this like gap, and then you get this summer, and then you get this little patch, and that was just all gone. And so I remember feeling like I'm redlining like it's exam time for 6 months at a time. And I don't know what I don't know. And I want to control everything. I want to know all the numbers about everything. Like, but at the same time, I don't want to know about everything. And so you're just feeling very trapped because you can't, there's no escape button. I remember a couple times saying, like, if I could, I would take mental health leave. If I was at any other job right now, I would be in HR, getting a note from a doctor and being like, this guy needs time off for like 3 months just to like cool down. And there's no option for that when you're a small business owner. Like, you're on the hook, you've just borrowed potentially millions of dollars to get something going. Like, your name is on that thing, and you have a team around you, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with you. And so trying to understand what's mine, what's God's, and what's other people's, and then also how much of it you share with the people around you. Because I was struggling with my mental health in big ways. Bigs up, big downs, depression. It was all the anxiety. You're fluxing back and forth. I mean, during some of that season, everybody was to a degree. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of people were experiencing emotions that they had never felt before because the rug just got ripped out. So I just remember feeling trapped in it for a long time.
And that was the
I want to
internal.
get out of this. How do I get out of this? Can I get out of this? Oh my gosh, like, what have I signed up for? Like, do I want to, how am I going to do this? And I just remember thinking, like, I think figured out, and I've applied this to most other areas of my life, is I'll just show up. Like, I'll get up and I'll sit down at the desk every day, and it'll work out because he's in it. He is in it, and he kept reminding me. And I go back to my journals where you're crying out to the Lord, asking for things, and you just see the way he's answered these prayers. But I think he started showing me very quickly just that he would show up, and in ways, and and he would protect areas. Like, in a small business, like, you can't have every single T crossed and every I dotted. It's just not possible. Like, unless you want to be a not-for-profit, because you can hire all of it out so that you just have no money left, but there's just, and as you get going, you keep hiring so that you can do more of it, so you can scale. But at the end of the day, like, I just remember thinking, how do I get out of this? Do I want to get out of this? And just the Lord being like, no, you're in it, and releasing me from things, and sending the right people at the right time, the right employees at the right time.
Wow, that's awesome, man.
Sure, it was good.
Well, and then we met, which was a whole different story unto itself. So we met through our mutual friend Matt, who's also a client of ours. And would you share a little bit about that? Because I know it's always such a funny conversation whenever you tell it back. But this is one of the questions that we had is, did you have any hesitations about stepping into coaching and intercession?
Oh, bunch. Yeah, I was like, no box for it. I'm like, hold on a minute. Like, it seems so silly now, but I just remember being like, so, like, what am I paying for exactly? Like, so people on the call don't have, like, these big business backgrounds? Like, so I'm paying for prophecy? Like, again, like, I actually did it. I remember doing it to honor Matt, my buddy Matt, because he was just like, he just was so sure. He's like, you need to do this. I really encourage you to do this. And I was like, I don't know. I remember thinking to myself, like, I'm gonna honor Matt and just do this, like, and yet I'm gonna just have the conversation and just check it out, and even trying to blend, because at that time, I think it's funny looking back, I went from very bivocational, which is a very organic approach to ministry, and then you catch me on like the end of this almost 5-year journey where I'm just full force business. So like my mind is just so immersed in like commerce and just do very transactional, which is like fine, but a lot of the relationships and the way I'm looking at the world is transactional to a degree. So it's a pendulum that's kind of swinging. Because at first I was just all heart, and just like it'll work out. And then the Lord's like, well, you got to have some like structure in the way you do business too. And you got to like hone the finance. So then it kind of swung more to like everything needs structure, and it's okay to ask for money, and it's okay. Like, because I didn't want to ask anybody for anything. So I meet you and you're like, I'm like, okay. And so much going to cost. And like, and you just look at me and because you can sense that I was like,
Yep.
I'm supposed to do this, but I don't really know why. And yet, like, Matt cares really deeply about me and he just kind of kept bugging me about it. And I was like, all right, man.
Okay.
And
So
you looked at me and you said, just give me 6 months, dude.
yeah,
I think the first call was a little clunky too. We were trying to
it
figure
was
it
fun.
out.
That was my
Someone had to
bad.
like cancel. Well, it's okay, dude. But I couldn't figure it out. And my
Yep.
dad too was like,
So you're doing
you're
what? Okay. So let's do
to
this
have
though.
people prophesy like almost like he was, it's not what he said, but I look back and like someone from the outside looking in, outside it might be like, so you're paying for a fortune telling service.
Yeah. Christian fortune telling though. So
There you
that's
go.
it's helpful. Yeah.
But like it's real.
So,
Like people are making these connections to what they know it to be on the other
totally.
side. So yeah.
Totally. Okay, so I want you to do something because you love sales. So if you were selling yourself back 2 years ago or whenever we met on what we do and the story that you've been through, what would you say? Take
Ooh,
as much time as you need.
that's a good question. That's a
Yeah.
really good one. Wow, you thought
Thank
that
you.
one through, didn't you?
No, that was just Holy Spirit like 2 minutes
No,
ago.
you didn't have that written down
100%.
anywhere. Nowhere written down.
No, it's not written down. It wasn't
Okay.
prompted by
I
ChatGPT.
believe you.
It's
I know you. I believe you.
prompted by Holy Spirit, dude. This is
You didn't chat GPT. Okay, cool.
no.
Because if you did, I wouldn't answer it. But
Okay.
so sell it to myself. Okay, this is your line, not mine. But the health of you as an individual will dictate the health of your business. Because whether you want it to be or not, you create the culture. It's going to roll downhill. How you talk about other people, how you talk about yourself, how you talk about the world around you, how you talk about your customers, you naturally, with your mouth, because of the place of authority you have as a business owner, it's going to roll downhill. It's just, whether you want it to or not, man, like you can't just hide and have someone else do it, or you're going to delegate that authority over to a manager and then they're going to determine the culture. And that's sometimes good if you hire them for that, but you also don't want to just give that over. So understanding that if I am not right in how I look at the creator and how I interact with my dad, my heavenly dad, is going to 100% reflect the decisions I make, how I make them, how I talk about them, and the culture of my business is going to shift really fast.
Very cool. That's
One
awesome.
way or another. So it's really worth digging into what's going on in your heart and what you actually believe about yourself and other things. And if you don't see him correctly, you can't see you correctly, which means you can't see other people correctly.
That's a good word, Tyler. That was awesome.
So if you can't hear the voice of the Lord and you think you can't hear the voice of the Lord, then you're just going to be sailing the seas, man. And that's where, I mean, this is a Bill Johnson quote, but it's one of my favorite. I think about it probably once every couple of days, is that he said, a kingdom without a king are like principles without the presence. I think he
Right.
says principles without the presence are like a kingdom without a king. You're just trying to apply something at the right time. And you can apply the right principle, but at the very wrong time. And I remember at that season I met you, I'm like, I don't know what to do. My head is so full of knowledge. I've read so many books. I've read so many business books. I'm listening to all these people. And I was just like pinging, like just because you don't have the presence. You have the presence, but you aren't tapped into it because you think you can't tap into it. And so you don't know how to apply the right thing at the right time. So you're just spinning. So you take a biblical construct, you try to apply it, it blows up in your face, but it's in the Bible, which makes you more confused. Maybe God's mad at me. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's chaos. It's just absolute chaos. But like, you're full of good stuff. It's like I was explaining some other day. Like, if you hit the wrong note when you're trying to play a chord on the guitar, it's nothing wrong with the note. It just sounds horrible.
That's good. I like that analogy. That's wise.
It's not mine. My buddy Kevin gave it to me.
No, it's okay. It's yours now.
Someone else already said it. I know.
Okay, thank you for that. That was amazing. Now, can I ask you this? Have you experienced an ROI in working with us?
Man, 100%. Yeah, you already know. You know the answer, but yeah, incredible.
I'm not trying to
though. It's built.
Yes, yeah. So I'm not trying to cue that up. I actually wanted to. I think you have, because you've been with us for 2 years. You don't usually stick.
No,
with
especially in the last couple months. Like, how long have we been meeting for?
Oh, I think it's been close to 2 years now. Let me ask you this. So, in what ways have you seen an ROI? Because I know one of the things that we've seen in market research is that leadership development, which is the category that we're under, has like it's between a 500 to 800% ROI. I missed the numbers. We have one of our previous podcasts quoted is just under 900. It's actually just under 800. Is the average 780% ROI? But they say generally between a 5 to 8x ROI on financially on doing leadership development. So, what have you experienced in that kind of category or realm in the ROI world?
It's funny, like I spoke at church yesterday, and in front of everybody said I was the guy that like 6 months ago told you I didn't hear anything every time we prayed in silence.
Yeah.
Like I was the guy being like, I think I said it to you so many times at the beginning. I don't hear God.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anything. I don't feel anything. I don't hear anything.
Yeah.
Like a little sheepish about it, right? Like, especially when you're sitting on a call with people who are like seeking the Lord and hearing things and then are like testing them together to kind of come back to the crew and be like, hey, what do you hear today, Ty? And you're like, nothing. Like nothing. Like, and you're like, why? Is something wrong with me? Like, again, all those questions, right? Like, because that's the depth of your heart. You want to hear God's voice. You think it's going to solve all your problems. Because you're like, if I could just walk with Jesus, and yet you see the disciples just having so many issues just by walking with him. So it's like, it's not going to solve all your problems. No, you shouldn't solve all your problems. Like, but the biggest ROI is the intimacy with Jesus, which is you look back and like understanding how loved I am by the Creator, and also you talk about feeling kind of alienated and alone. A lot of entrepreneurs, especially starters and founders, have like this explosive energy and are used to operating in uncharted territory comfortably. And that would be, I think, fairly common, especially if you're a founder. You have to have kind of the blind confidence to be able to make the jump and not have a lot of structure around you, because it's just going to come as you go. And you notice that, like, people are like, oh, I'm fine. I don't need a ton of structure to function. And I don't. I actually use structure because I see how people around me suffer when I don't put structure into place. But I personally don't need it until the workload gets too high, and then I have to put it in. But all that to say, if you're operating in more of an apostolic type gifting, there is such a desire of your heart to know if you're walking actually where you're supposed to be walking. Because though you can exist without a lot of structure, there's still this depth in your heart to know, am I still operating within the parameters that I'm supposed to be? And that's where some of the loneliness comes into play. So like there is this need, and you see it in the Word, for like the apostolic and even people in general, like where prophetic, voice starts to go down, there's discouragement. Because we're not operating within the boundaries. And you see that in parenting, where it's like kids without boundaries, if they feel deeply insecure, they actually crave the routine. My wife's going through that right now with 4 kids at home. Like, there's no sense of routine right now coming out of school. And the kids are just going wild. And, like, nobody's happy. Like, and we know it's an adjustment phase, but we're like, we need to get some routine in place so the kids, there's a degree of predictability. Like, are there any sort of parameters? So when I would feel in my heart I could not wait to hop on the call in the interim of not being able to sense that I have God's voice, because the supplementary nature of meeting with a prophetic team as while I'm operating in an apostolic type gifting is to know, like, am I where I'm supposed to be right now?
Right.
In the journey of hearing God's voice. And now it's interesting to meet with you guys when I'm hearing God's voice on a regular basis, because now it's just like exciting in a whole new way. Because it's like, okay, are they in alignment with what I'm hearing? So now it's even a deeper sense of, not are they filling in a void that's in my life right now and helping me set parameters on where to set my focus. Because when I walk away from the meeting, I'm going back out into uncharted territory.
Right.
Because as you get farther up in organizations and leaderships and in business, and then you start to mesh business and ministry together, there's less people talking about the situations that you're finding yourself in. There's more nuance, there's more mystery, and there's principles that you have to apply at the right time, and they're going to look different, which is why there can be two guys in two different cultures praying about the same issue, and God's going to give them two very distinct answers that are both going to be from the Word of God.
Well, I actually didn't know what you'd say. This is really fascinating. So kind of where we position ourselves as a guide in that process is helping walk this through. And you know, I've taught people how to hear Jesus since I was 18. I grew up in this, so I've been doing this for half of my life now, like teaching people this concept, and it's such a joy. I love it. And I learn stuff all the time. Like, we get wisdom and revelation on the calls, because you're right. Like a principle devoid of relationship is just religion. It's just, in business we call it a best practice, right? I'm going to apply the best practice.
And it's good. It's not even a bad thing. It's just kind of empty.
Exactly, unless it's what God is doing. And then when it's what God is doing, there's life in it. There's all that kind of stuff. And so we kind of walk alongside you in that journey of getting you clear, of getting your identity aligned and hearing God. And then what's been fun is you are among several of our clients where it's like the stuff in your heart that was inhibiting you from operating in that is dissipated. And now you're moving more into like ruling and reigning in your identity. And it's been fun because it's like, oh, we get to just walk alongside and let's explore what this looks like together. Let's walk together with the Lord into that. And it's been more of, even for myself, honestly, it's been a bit of a mystery, because it's like, okay, Jesus, like, what is the prophetic dreaming of the future, and how do we align with that? Like, where are the invitations that you have? Because I've heard the desires in your heart and the prophetic words in your life, and all that stuff is really great. And then it's just the timing of walking that out with God and letting Him expand you, and getting to partner with that. And I want to be clear, because people aren't praying for a prophetic word. That's important. They're paying for our time. We have a really an amazing team that takes the time and has taken decades to cultivate a skill set that usually in the church that we think of as the last people to pay for. And Scripture says where your treasure is, there your heart is also. So money always reveals what's in your heart, and so that's why we've felt called to ascribe value in a business and not be a ministry where it's like, hey, donate what you can. But you know, God's been strange with us a bit, like, hey, I want you to charge these rates, and I want you to charge more for, you know, bigger businesses and XYZ, and like walked us through that. I'm like, okay, Jesus, because there's value, right? There's where your treasure is, there your heart is also. There's value in where, you know, where we see that value and can ascribe value, and then see that ROI in our business. I mean, it's been neat too, because this happens, and I think part of it has happened with you because of the business person you become. I think part of it, hopefully we had a catalytic nature, but I've noticed for you financially, your situation is a lot different than it was when we started. And so there was some catalytic moments along that journey, but like you've grown your business significantly over the last year 18 months in a lot of different categories. And again, I'm not trying to describe that as that's us. That's, I think that's you and the wisdom that you carry, seeing the market, seeing the opportunities, seeing where there's alignments in those opportunities, stepping into them, even doing something really really abnormal. And so you're an owner of a home hardware, you're the owner and operator, and then you had this opportunity to be a regional sales rep. So would you tell us a little bit about that? Because that's a unique situation, which I know changed
Sure.
stuff for you guys. But
Yeah. And I also want to just comment quickly on something you
yeah,
said before is because I was thinking about it, like, and actually I remember framing it this way when I was determining signing up, because as a business owner, a fixed cost is usually like you just try not to pick those up, right? Like you try not to pick the fixed cost up, but as a business owner, especially when you're trying to becoming profitable and you're trying to figure out, how you're gonna, you know, what your finances are gonna be used for, and being called in to be someone who finances the kingdom. I remember just really feeling a sense of like huge peace about it, because it was a tangible way that my business could seek first the kingdom of God.
wow,
And so I remember thinking, you know what, this is almost like maybe a tithe's too strong of a word, but it's somewhere where I can put my money where my mouth's at. And you think about this, like, if I'm a kingdom business owner and the call is to finance the kingdom, to create excess and to use all things. And if I look at God as maybe being a really good business partner, which is kind of what he was talking about this morning, actually in the quiet place. Like he was like, I'm a good business partner. I was like,
yeah,
you're an amazing business partner, but I can all of a sudden tangibly put my money and the profit of my business into something that's business consultation, but is actually actively seeking first the things of the kingdom, which is what it is. Like it's an active battle cry in a place where commerce and there's just a lot of other stuff going on, a lot of different dynamics, but I'm able to carve that out on paper and see it on my monthly statements and go, this is me saying what you think about these things and what you think about me is just as important as being profitable. And
yeah.
knowing that there's incredible reward in that. And you look at like tithes in the Old Testament being a debt to be paid. And now, the excess that we garnish being able to be a seed that's sown. It's just a really tangible seed. It's something we get to rejoice in. It's really cool because you're able to go, you know what, man, like, I don't know. And a lot of business owners are like, how much do I give? Do I give? Do I give corporately? Do I give out of this? It's like, no, but you get to actually just sow a seed and hear what God's heart is on what you're doing. So you're seeking first.
Yeah,
About
cool.
it is. And that framed it for me, that moment. Because I was like, okay, like, on one hand, there's a way that seems right to a man. Don't pick up too many fixed costs. And then there's also seek first the kingdom of God. And then right in front of me, there's like this massively tangible way to do that.
That's so funny because
And it
I don't
becomes a no-brainer.
I don't think I could have said that though, because that coming from me is like, yeah, sow a seed. I'm good. So that sounds bad, but that's
So
neat.
your
That God
seed with
said it.
me, yeah. Do you want to seek first the kingdom of God? Yeah,
That
you want
sounds
the
like
fine
prosperity
line
gospel if I'm
in the
saying it, but
service you
that's neat
offer.
that God said that. Yeah,
Yeah, because
that's so funny.
it's got to be cool. Anyway, you asked a question. Yeah, so like about working for someone else. So it's kind of interesting. Like, I love being a business owner. I enjoy it. It keeps you up at night from time to time. Not so much anymore because, again, the trust is so high that he's just going to take care of things. But there's still things from time to time you're like, man. But then I actually had an opportunity to like buy another business venture that on paper it was like one of those things that comes across your desk and you go, man, there's so many people looking for these opportunities. Like, I'd be an idiot to turn this down. I remember going to my mentor, Mark, and being like, what do you think of this, man? And he, right out of his mouth, he's just like, that's not for you. And he doesn't know anything about it. And I'm just like, I don't have peace about it either. I don't, but on paper, it like totally aligns. And why, like, you look at the numbers, like small investment, massive ROI established. I'm like, what am I? He's like, I don't know about that, man. And I was like, I know. So I passed on it. And then it's real. You get kind of anxious later. You're kind of like, oh man, was I just hearing the Lord? Like, was I just acting in fear? And I knocked on the door. Hey, is this still available? Hey, the guy's like, no, I just signed the papers yesterday, man. It's like, it's done deal. So, okay, all right, cool. It's good. It's fine. And then, I start selling these premier portable buildings, and I'm loving the culture of the company, like loving the people I'm working with. And through some like mishaps or just some stuff in the company that goes on, the guy who is overseeing me ends up, no longer being in that position, and so it's offered to me like in passing, like, do you want to oversee the like the region, like you're obviously like your dealership's doing really well. And I remember I actually was standing out front of my business, and I remember being like this, like, and like, no, man, like, there's no way.
Yeah.
And yet, the portable building company I was working for had become, the dealership had started to, like, all of a sudden take over 20% of my time, 30, 50, 70. And now I'm like, it's going really well, but I'm like, I'm closing the door and just like sitting behind closed doors for just hours out of the week. And my staff know it's going so well. They're just kind of covering for me. And I remember sitting and kind of praying and going back to my mentor Mark and my friend and going, what do you think about this? Like, I'm thinking about maybe stepping into this world, because I thought about it later and I was like, wait, I can take on basically like a whole business division without putting any money in. I can take a contract, I can treat it like it's my own business, but I don't have to put any money in. Like, I can just treat this like a business. Like, I'm going to just steward somebody else's business like it's my own. And he actually said, I'll never forget what he said. He goes, if you don't do it, there will be people in your organization that won't grow into the fullness of who they were called to be.
Whoa.
Which meant for me, and we were needing to scale, that I could take myself off payroll in my businesses, free up cash flow to then equip and empower what they were needing, which was like more cash for the things that they're working on, to equip and empower them, to raise them up as leaders. And yet this job that I'm taking is like way more of a commitment than this other opportunity I had. And yet there's that piece where I'm going. I remember swinging in a hammock camping and sensing from the Lord the word equipper. Like, I'm calling you to be deeper equipper, to take what I've gifted you in and to equip other people to do it. And so I remember my dad looking at me going, just so you know, man, like, it's going to get worse before it gets better, because like, you're going to have to free up, like, you're taking on a full-time job. And I remember taking the job, and Jamie, who's like our team lead, he hates when we call him boss, but he's our team lead for Canada, and him being like, just so you know, like, when you like August 1st, like, you're it. Like, there's no, I'm going to cover for you because you have all these other businesses. Like, yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah, you're in. And then we rocked it out. So I've been doing that for 2 years now.
It's been going well. Yeah, almost.
Well. Yeah.
Yeah, you have been. I think we've been actually looking back at those things. We've been working together for just over 2 years, which is crazy to think about. It's wow. Yeah. Well, and that actually brings up a point I find interesting. It's such a hard thing to describe to people, but there's two types of relationships. We talk about this, that there's transactional relationships and transformational relationships. And in our business, it's a weird relationship because we start off in transaction with the goal of building a transformational relationship in which transactions can take place, and that's a fine thing. Mm-hmm. And now I'm like, when you and I talk throughout the month, where we're like friends, and I enjoy talking. I'm like, oh, Tyler texted, sweet. Like, I get to chat. We can voice memo back and forth. How's it going
right now? Yeah.
And it's such a weird dynamic, because that's not a normal thing necessarily, right? Like, you can for sure build relationships with vendors or clients or whatever, but it's been fun for me to get to build that relationship. What's that been like for you? Like, because I know that was weird at the start.
Yeah, I remember that, because you were like, hey man, like we kind of, I remember you were telling me how it goes, or how it's so kind of how you like it to go, and how it does go. And you were like, hey, like, we started to connect, and there's kind of like, we're going to meet for this segment amount of time. And at my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm paying money for this time, but there's also this relationship that can happen outside of it too. Yeah. And I remember being kind of like, okay, so which is which? And I remember actually saying to you, like, we're connecting regularly during a month, and me being like, hey dude, do you need to, like, put some more money on the bill this month? And you being like, no man, like, no dude, like, this is just part of the nature of the job. And like, being like, is it okay that I'm reaching out to you like this right now? And you being like, dude, it's fine, because we're blending the secular and the sacred together. Like, we're in community with one another. I remember you saying to me, like, if it's like that, I'll tell you, but it's not. And me being like, okay, because usually when you have like a sales rep or someone, I'm trying to be sensitive of not reaching out unless we're actually buddies and we're going out for drinks, or we're going out for food all the time, and like, we're real life doing like
Right.
we have these other overlaps, but I wouldn't be like wanting to text them about things. But because the nature of what we're texting about is deeply personal, in the sense of like it's what's going on in your heart
Yeah.
and relation to God, you guys are willing to step into that boundary as you guys feel called, and it was hard to get my head around.
Yeah, because it's not a normal thing. And for me, what I care more about for all of our clients is that they see the tangible breakthrough. Not that we have that transactional relationship, but that they would actually get those breakthroughs they're looking for. Because you were walking through some tumultuous waters at the time,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
when you're going through that, and
Hmm.
some real soul searching and stuff that God was uprooting in your heart. And so it's
Yeah.
like, you
But you were
know,
seeing breakthrough.
I was
Like
seeing breakthrough, but I'm
you
not.
see the breakthrough though of
Yeah.
like you're like it's really important to you that you see breakthrough and you see me breaking through like hard stuff.
Well, and not only that, but I didn't want to leave you hanging in pain. Like that's not a fun idea for me. Where you're just like you're there and you're suffering, and you need to talk to someone about it. And we've
Sure.
been walking through this journey, so I'm not gonna be like, oh yeah, no, next month. Like that's fine. Like
Right.
so, it's like send me a voice memo. That's I'll get back to you when I can. If we need to call.
Sure.
And sure enough, what I was like, you leaned into this process for sure of what God was doing in your heart, not what Greg was doing in your heart, because I'm not that smart, but what God was doing in your heart. And as God uprooted stuff in your heart that was
Yep.
causing a belief system, which was causing actions that weren't in alignment with who you knew you were called to be,
Yeah.
then we actually got to the root of some things and saw those things uprooted, and now there's this really beautiful culmination that I'm seeing in you where you're just like there's more peace, there's more joy, there's more alignment in your life
Hmm.
than I think I've seen, at least in the 2 years that I've known you. And that's been really fun. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, what is some of the stuff that God's been showing you lately? Because I know that was part of the whole point of this conversation. Of like, God's been showing you some really cool stuff.
Oh man, like meeting in the quiet place with Jesus, like so you go from oh I don't want to read the Bible or like I need to do this thing to you start connecting on such an intimate level with Jesus that it starts spilling out into all these different areas of your life. And so
Hmm.
it doesn't feel as much like work. And so it's you start getting free from all these things as we're identifying them on these calls and getting kind of like okay, where are you at is where we're discerning and then the freedom that comes from that. I remember I showed up and I wasn't feeling that good yet, but you were like, dude, you're doing way better. And I was like, well, I'm glad you see that because my emotions haven't caught up yet. But there's definitely a massive shift in the paradigm that's happened. And I remember you kind of saying, like, just give it some time because, like, it's the fruit of that's going to continue coming out. And yet, all of a sudden, like, a couple months later, like, I just have to spend more time with Jesus. And he's starting to speak, and I'm starting in a language that I understand, and like, and in a way, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's actually your voice, and starting to impress on me things like, I'm looking for ways to bless you today, just so you know, this is what a word of knowledge is. This is what this is, and it's in language that you understand. It's not like, oh, a word of knowledge is this religious kind of funky word. Like, it's a
Yeah,
like word from a distant land for people. It's like a drink of cold water on a parched tongue. Like that's
yeah,
what it's like. You're just there to encourage people. It's from me though. You're just a messenger, and he's framing things in a way that I don't have to be worried. And all of a sudden, you start bringing that into the workplace,
hmm,
and it starts because you can't. All of a sudden, you can't not because it's these things that are fundamentally changing in your heart and your understanding of who you are when you're living in your created value and who you've created to be starts to just spill. It
yeah.
starts to flow. Like there's no, it's weird to try to rein it in. I remember actually, I'm getting so excited that I'm having to like not talk during the day as much because I get so fired up. I can't sleep at night because it's
That's
just coming out so fast.
yeah,
And having to like bunker down and be like, okay, you gotta learning how to navigate within freedom. Because in this whole
hmm,
journey, really, fear has been the compass for so long, and condemnation for why we do and all of a sudden that comes off, and I'm finding that stewarding freedom is like actually just as challenging, but like there's so much fruit in it because
yeah.
now it's uncharted territory. Like, and I'm having to okay, so now I'm free from all this stuff. Why I now the compass is like out of love, So I got to go back. Am I doing this in love? Not am I doing this out of fear?
Wow.
Which is like a really subtle shift, and yet the journey's like exhilarating and exciting, and like, and so like we were talking about, you're running into talking with customers, and you'll hear, I'll be like, well, Lord, what do you want to know right now? And I'll be like, ask them this. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that right now. I'm in the middle of selling something, right? It's like, just ask him. Okay, right? And all of a sudden, the person's crying, and then their wife's crying, and then they're like, and they're angry because they're in pain, and but it starts happening on a regular basis. And you're walking, I'm walking through the gym, and I just shared this story yesterday in my message as well. But it was one of those ones that was so specific where he's like, you need to pay attention. I just hear pay attention, like the headphones come out, right? Like, okay. Like, go talk to that guy. Like, okay. And like, what happened? Lord, I'm like working out in the corner. Like, what happened to that guy? He's like, oh, he got in a car accident. And, like, why is he limping? And it's just like, you're just hearing the free flowing thought of his voice. And then you approach the guy and, did you get in a car accident? Yeah, I did. Like, just, it's a larger story. It's incredible. They're fun, but they start to like really stack up, and every day starts to feel like an adventure.
So when you ask those questions, what happens with people? Do their hearts open up, or like what's the result?
People feel love. Like, it breaks through a lot of stuff in that moment when you take the risk to love somebody in the way that God's calling you to love, and show them that God's thinking about them. Mm-hmm. You can tell that it connects on such a deep level that even if they're a little bit like thrown off in the moment, like in the same way that I feel when I meet with you guys and I'm seeking this like relationship with the Creator. Honestly, to sum it up, I want to walk in the cool of the day with the Creator again. Yeah. And so all of a sudden someone gets like a taste of that. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh my gosh, like he knows me, like he's thinking about me, like someone else is thinking. There's like, it hits in such a deep level that I think it honestly forms a kairos moments for a lot of people where they're like, hold on a minute. Because often I've noticed like they'll have been seeking, like this one guy, like I asked the Lord, I'm like, what's going on with this guy? And he's like, he's been seeking me. So when you sit down, he said, have you been asking some hard questions to the Lord? And he goes, I got a lot of questions. Like, I'm seeking something right now, I don't know what it is. So you imagine that. This guy's like crying out to what could be whatever God he's searching. Mm-hmm. And God's like, if you're real, show me. And the God of Abraham, right, it is like talking to you as you're walking into the gym. And he's like, hey, son, I've answered. Like, I'm here. Hello.
Amazing.
It is amazing.
You've seen some fruit from it, hey? Like, it sounds like some of those stories are catalytic moments for people themselves to like experience the kingdom and maybe step into it, and at least you're building the relationships and all of that.
You do. And it's like one moment though, because you look back at a lot of people's faith, especially in North America, for whatever reason, it's often a whole bunch of these little touch points. Yeah. Like in some other cultures and countries, it does happen from time to time, but it's just, they're cool stories because how did you come to Jesus? And like all these little moments, and you get to just be one of those small or very large moments in someone's story. And
that's that evangelism kind of coming full circle for you in your story too, right? Like where you fell in love with the idea of sharing the gospel, and now it's just really practical. God's speaking to you about what's going on, which is really how the disciples actually did evangelism in the New Testament. It wasn't the working of miracles was the term that was associated with evangelism. It was sharing the gospel for sure, but they were always accompanied by signs and wonders. And so one of those is a word of knowledge, which is just really cool that desire in your heart from when you were younger is coming full circle in a new way. Because I imagine you weren't as evangelistic in those 5 years of launching and scaling your business as you were. And if it was it out of like a religious best practice or out of authentic?
A lot of fear. Because I would ask, and I'd be sitting with a guy like, what should I know about that guy? And I would, maybe this is his Lord's voice, maybe it's not. There's a lot of insecurity in it, and you don't want to be wrong. And yet when you step into it and God starts to frame it in a language that you can understand and get your head around, because he's going to talk to you in a way that it's the way that you're created. So he's using metaphors and pictures and ways that I get my head around it that's going to lead me down a path that's not going to puff me up. Because it's not like a collect them all to get the scrapbook of these cool miraculous stories. Because that is it's a real tendency
I
to
got what
have
you're
this
saying.
like wall of all these accomplishments, but to understand, he's like, okay, but the way that you approach this and the way that I see, like almost like how does he see me when I'm doing it? And it grounds me because it's just like I'm here to serve today. And right now, I try to take one risk a day, and he brings it in front of me because that's the depth of faith that I'm in. Like I see guys that every room they walk into, it's like blah 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 blah, and that's a depth that they're in. Like that's a cool spot to be in. But the depth that I'm in right now is that I believe that he can bring someone across my radar on a daily basis, and it shows up. Not even every day, but that's the goal. That's the heart. And so someone will call me. And I'll be like, you just know, there's just grace on it. Because you just go, this is it, right here. And there's pain. It's always pain. Like, people are hurting. Like, someone's hurting in front of you, and I can't help but, even if nothing tangible happens in that moment, now I have to lift them up before my dad. Because I know, not just like cognitively know, I feel and know that it's the most loving thing that I can do for you right now. And it's actually the only thing that I can offer you is him. I can give you my perspective on the situation, but it's going to be the real work and the real transformation is going to be between you and him. And so if I can introduce you to my dad, then it's an intro, and it's just these small frames that all of a sudden I have the courage because I'm like, it's not on me. Because I realized that really like about a year ago, God's like, when you take credit, you also bear all the weight.
Ooh. Say that again.
When you take the credit for your accomplishments and things in your life, you also have to wear the weight of that thing. And that has really stuck with me because when I'm feeling the weight of life around me, it's not just that I'm trying to like take it all, I'm also taking credit. If I'm going to take the credit for my business, that means I got to wear the weight of getting it done. If I'm going to take the credit for being a really good dad. So when I talked to my daughter Willa the other day, like it sounds like false humility, but it's actually like what I believe about it. Like I was like, Willa, do you want to know why like I'm really funny? And she's like, why, Daddy? And I'm like, because my dad's really funny.
Yeah.
And he's inside me. Like, and do you want to know why like I like try to like love people? Because I think my dad loves me. And like, do you want to know why I like try to give really good gifts to you all the time? It's because he gave me all these gifts. Like, do you want to know why I have this house? Because my dad owns houses.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like almost like a praise, but it sounds kind of silly, but like it's actually, if I believe and I know that he takes care of what is his, then I want to give him everything all the time. And that means if I'm sitting in front of someone right now, I'm going to give God this problem and like, what does he want to do about it? And it sounds so simple, it's almost foolish. And yet it's like, and then I get done saying that to my daughter. And I'm like, we love because he first loved us. Like this is in the words just flowing through me. You want to know why I have money? Because my dad has money.
Yeah.
Like, and people, like he has resources. And so even when it's going kind of wild or it's not going well, he takes care of what's his.
Well, and so what it sounds like for me is it's gone from principle to like actual experience. And like we talk about kingdom business principles and we talk about giving. We talk about exactly the scripture, all of the scriptures you just said, like, oh, he's got the cattle on 1,000 hills, and we love because he first loved us, but then we believe it's our own ability to carry those things out. Yeah. But it's been, again, it's neat for me because it's a progression. Like it's like I get to walk alongside you in the journey as Jesus does this work in your heart, but where it's like, this is real. It's real and it affects everything. So I love that you touched on your family because I was actually going to ask you that question. Like, how does this affect your family? And, for me, one of the things I've noticed for you is that every area of your life that's touched, like we are a fully integrated person. So we can't say if stuff's going bad in our family, it doesn't affect our business because it does.
Sure.
we've inadvertently done marriage counseling, not actual counseling,
Sure.
but like worked with marriages in our business, not because we're trying to, but because it's the thing that's the biggest tension point, and then it actually releases breakthrough over here in the business, being kind of cool. But one thing I've noticed with you as you leaned into this process is like Jesus is speaking to core areas of every area of your life, and how you can love your kids, and how you can start this business venture over here, like how God is a business partner, how it's affecting your culture at church, because I know you didn't mention this, but you're the point elder at your church right now, right? You're the chair of the board, and so holistically, I've just really, it's been fun for me to watch how you're killing it. Like you're doing such a great job, and it's just been fun to just help with little catalytic moments of hey, we can hear God, and you can hear God really clearly, and this is how we do it, and here's some things that He says in Scripture. This is how it's applied, and man, I've enjoyed just the friendship and getting to watch the whole progression of your journey, and I'm excited to see what comes down the pipeline too, because I know we haven't even dove into the international call you have with ministry and business and all that kind of stuff. And so
Sure.
it's for me it's been such a joy, and it is a continual joy to get to watch this journey roll out in your life, and just how you're responding and saying yes to what Jesus is doing, and how Chatham's going to be different because of that. Like it is already different because of it, but it gets to continue to shift the culture of your city and region, man. It's really, really cool.
I appreciate it, dude. We appreciate you guys, man. Like big
Of course
it's been really fun.
It's
It's been yeah.
and hopefully I think it continually will be fun. But I think that's our time, because you got to go do some like work. It's Tyler took his month's end, which is like the most sales. I heard your phone go off at one point.
Yeah.
To take a couple hours today. So
I was like, let's just send it, you know.
let's just
There's
do it.
probably
Yeah.
some people that have been trying to call me that if they listen to this are gonna be like, yes, what are you doing? That's what
What
he
are
was
you
doing.
doing? Talking about
Cost all
Jesus.
this money, man.
Yeah.
Still.
All right.
No, it's
Well,
actually been fine, man. It's been really good.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Cool.
It's been really good. Yeah, it's been fun. The Lord,
Well, let's wrap up with this. If you're ever in the Chatham area, look Tyler up. What's your guys' church again? Kingdom City, right?
Forward City.
Forward City, my
Forward
bad.
City Church. Yeah.
Forward City Church.
Yeah.
Damn
Handy
Home
Brothers
Hardware.
Climate Care. Yeah.
Not custom.
We meet in a business building. It's really fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, Tyler, people want to connect with you. I mean, this is different usually, because usually we're having people who are trying to build an audience, and you're not. But that's where they connect with you, right? They want to find you on social.
If you want to connect with me, call Damn Home Hardware. And if you leave a message, I will call you back. That's what I tell people all the time. Just look it up on Google. Damn Home Hardware, call the store. Be like, oh, so-and-so wants to. I'll think that you want to buy something, but maybe you just want to tell me something. I have no idea.
And what I love about Tyler,
I love connecting with people just to the sake of it. So you can call the store. Like I can't hide. Like if you want to find me, I'm in the office. I tell the people all the time, but they think I'm a scam. I'll be like, literally, my last name's on this. Like I'm in the building. Just you can show up. Don't be creepy.
Wait,
Just kidding.
and Tyler said this. I don't know if this is this fair to say that you said if anyone has any questions or thoughts about us, they can call you, right?
Anytime. Yeah, I would love to chop it up. Even if you think I'm wrong, man. If you're like, dude, what you said is so whack, it disturbed me. Like I would love to know why. I'd love to know you better. Why you were
That'll be the conversation that we have after I have some disagreement. But I'm just kidding. That was awesome.
Just let it rip. Just let it rip now. Let's chop it up. Just kidding.
No, we're good. Hey, no, thanks so much for taking the time, man. I'm sure we'll probably do part 2 of this, because I love getting to connect with you and hear
Blessings to you, man. It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
All mine.
Okay. Thanks, Tyler.
Man.
Take care.